Black Panther: Wakanda Forever is now in theaters, and here are some of my thoughts. Wakanda Forever had been a movie that had been in the works for a long time, but had been delayed by about 6 months due to tragedy that struck the movie. The sudden and tragic passing of Chadwick Boseman completely changed the way that this movie was supposed to actually be told. Director and writer Ryan Coogler has said in interviews that his original script dealt with T'Challa dealing with the loss of time following the snap from Thanos. 2 months after the script had been finished, Chadwick Boseman suddenly and tragically passed away. And in the midst of that grief that him and the rest of the cast were dealing with, he had to go back and rewrite and retweak certain parts of the script in order to deal with this new situation that they were in. So for me as a movie reviewer, oftentimes what I want to do is I want to go and watch a movie on its own merit, forgetting everything else that happened in the background, has happened in the production, and just focus on the end product. But for this movie, it was almost impossible for me to do that, knowing the amount of hurdles that they had to jump over in order to make this production come to life. As I watched this movie, there were so many things that worked beautifully. The cast all around is phenomenal. I loved seeing Lupita Nyong'o as Nakia and Winston Dubeck as M'Baku in their respective roles, although I personally would have loved to see them even more because I thought that they brought, in the limited moments that they were on screen, they brought an amazing energy to the screen. But the two standouts for me are probably the two names that you're going to hear in a lot of reviews. Queen Ramonda, played by Angela Bassett, was a powerhouse in this movie. The power that she displays in the midst of grief is so tangible, and it's so evident that even while not even being a Black Panther, she was the most powerful force anytime that she was on screen. She was amazing, and I honestly think that this portrayal is going to garner some Academy Award consideration. The other standout is newcomer Tenoch Huerta as Namor, or Namor as many of us know him. I know that he's been in a few other shows like Narcos before this, but this was my first exposure to him, and I was so impressed with his performance in this movie. He brought what I'd like to call like a quiet ferocity to him. There were times where just the look that he was giving certain characters made me honestly feel nervous for the Wakandans and their war with his people, the Talokans. The handling of Chadwick Boseman and his character T'Challa and his passing was handled with such delicacy, with such care, that I honestly don't think there was any better way that they could have handled this character. The movie quickly dives into the situation with T'Challa, and without giving any spoilers away, it was a very heavy start to the movie. And one thing that I believe that Ryan Coogler did so beautifully with a certain choice that he makes is there are moments of silence in this movie. And in those moments, they usually followed some big information, some images, some visuals in regards to the character of T'Challa. And in those moments of silence, it was just beautiful timing because I could feel the theater, just all of their emotions just kind of sinking in, all of the realization, all of just everything that was happening in that theater was sinking in. And honestly, I was in a packed theater and I could hear sniffling and I could see tears in people sitting next to me. And it just shows that through quiet and just through a couple of quick images and lines, we were able to feel and almost relive the passing of T'Challa, but even more so Chadwick Boseman. And so I think they handled the situation, given all the circumstances, as best as they could. I know there are many at odds as to whether or not Marvel should have chosen to recast the character T'Challa or not. I'm not personally in that camp. I'm not here to get into that, but I am very curious, all things said, with the way that this movie progresses the story of Black Panther. I'm very curious to see how they handle Black Panther moving forward. While I would say about 90% of this movie really worked for me, I do have a few small issues with it. The movie is 2 hours and 40 minutes, and it felt every bit of 2 hours and 40 minutes. There are moments, especially I would say in kind of the second act of the movie, where certain storylines, certain characters are brought in that I really, really don't think were necessary to this movie. It almost felt, and this is just me speculating, it almost felt like the studio gave Ryan Coogler certain notes that he had to include certain things in order to tie this movie into the greater MCU and in order to set up a couple of things moving forward. And I really think that it did a bit of a disservice to this movie. I think that if you had taken certain characters out, I really think it would have taken about maybe 15-20 minutes of runtime out of this movie. And I think that if this movie had been about 2 hours and 20 minutes, it would have been a nice tighter pacing that I think would have really serviced this movie in a positive way in the grand scheme of things. So I just really wish that they hadn't chosen to do that. But all things considered, I thought Coogler did the best he could in handling it. But there were times where I really was starting to feel a little bit of the bloat of the movie because of a lot of different things happening. And there's a lot to set up with everything going on. But I do think that a couple of those side characters, I really think that if you had just cut them out completely, it would have served the movie better. My other negative for this movie may make me a little unpopular, but it's just something that I felt that I had to share. Letitia Wright as Shuri was one of my favorite characters in the first Black Panther movie. The brilliance that she brought to screen, the comedy that she brought, I think it really fit the role well. And in Wakanda Forever, there are scenes where I was very impressed with Letitia Wright's performance. I could actually feel the grief that she shared with moments of loss throughout this movie. But with that said, there was something missing when trying to see her as a lead of a movie. It is nothing at all against Letitia Wright or the character of Shuri, because I love them and I would love to see more of Shuri. But I just felt that when thrust kind of into the spotlight into trying to be the lead of this movie, there were times that I can't even describe what it was, but there was a certain weight that I felt was missing. And so it makes me a little bit concerned as to what is going to happen moving forward in future movies or even future shows that are being developed. But I am completely willing to keep an open mind to see how it moves forward. I'm not closed off at all to the idea. And I really, really hope that my opinions on this character in a leading role changes in the future. Overall, Wakanda Forever was a beautiful tribute to our T'Challa, Chadwick Boseman, and was easily the best MCU movie of 2022 by a mile for me. And again, my personal opinion, but it is easily the best movie. While quite not as good as Black Panther 1, for me, I understand that a lot of this movie's results were because of the circumstances that they were dealt with. And so, despite all of that, it is definitely a recommend for me. It is one of, I would say, with Spider-Man No Way Home, it's probably my favorite MCU movie since Endgame. And I am very, very curious to see how the general audience responds to it. For me, my recommendation, it is a movie that is well worth going to the theaters to watch. Watch it on the biggest screen you can. I got a chance to watch it in IMAX, and to me, the action scenes were beautiful seeing it on the big screen. So if you have a chance, that's an option for you, go out to your theaters, get ready for all the emotions. I'm very curious to hear your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for the support. Leave your thoughts down below on your thoughts on the movie. Do you think that they should have recast T'Challa? Did you enjoy the movie? Did you not? Let me know in the comments. I would love to interact with you. Thank you guys so much for the support, and I'll see you guys on the next one.